I have noticed is, as we just let go of our body each night, there is a high importance of letting go of our mind once in a while, because there is something that builds up in the mind and that becomes heavier and heavier over time. We just don't know how to lose that, and that's the cause of a lot of sufferings that we have in our life. Just like we are completely unconscious of the body when we sleep, the state of no mind is also similar. We just drop it or let it do whatever it wants to do, and we just sit in a side and watch it. And it gives a huge relief for the whole functioning of the body, physically, mentally, emotionally. So just balances once we just let go of what's happening or accept of what's happening inside of us. It's a very interesting phenomenon. And it's the same for everybody, every people. We do have different emotional cycles, spectrums, but the functionality of them is same. It's very interesting. That's why meditation works all around the world. It's way beyond our comprehension of how we actually function as human beings. It's very interesting. That's why these weekly meetings that we are starting is for this purpose of dropping the mind, at least for a while, of all the luggages that we have. Because in the end it doesn't count, it's just, we have to leave it anyways. So just relaxing for a while, leaving whatsoever is going on in our life.
Do you think if actually there's a singular entity of I, or that everybody is searching for? Just now that you mentioned, like we all play different characters, and then when it becomes a huge sort of lot of things, lot of characters, and you kind of lose yourself in it, and then you ask, who are you actually? But do you think this I is a singular entity of a person, or it is, is there like one I, like which I am, or...
Yeah. There is this one I that notices everything.
Okay.
And it notices the changes that appears in front of that I. For example, if a certain somebody is coming and we hear that from the other person that particular person has certain things that he does in life and is not a good person or so and so, then what happens when we see that person for the first time is we don't see that person as the first time. We see that person as what we have heard already, and it already has created a mirror in front of us. But the I, which would never know about this person before meeting, and the I that knows when he heard about this kind of things about this person, the I is same. What goes around the I is different, and that's different for everybody. Because what goes around the I that I call I is different than what goes around the I that everyone else calls I. But what is focused here is the phenomenon. And the phenomenon is same for everybody. How we process this I in our lives, it is different. But the experience of I and the processing of I and how the whole phenomenon goes is the same. We all process our I's similar way. But we have different stories, and that makes us different. One of the main focus of this whole ideology of meditating and yoga and all this is to know that this I is there and to understand how the I processes things. And once we know how the I processes this misery or suffering, then it's easy to just see that, okay, it's processing like this. This is the phenomenon that's happening within. And that immediately creates a distance between what's happening and the one who is watching or knowing that these things are happening. That's why when we say bliss, it looks like there is only happiness, but that's totally not true. The bliss has both light and dark. And for a lot of people it is very difficult to accept the dark side of the bliss, and just because we cannot face our own dark sides. We are always running away from our own dark sides. That's what Jung calls shadows. It just appears somehow. The more we avoid it, the more it appears, and it starts making its own characters in us. And we do things we regret later. We do things we don't like. It just comes throughout all from these shadows, and the things that we don't want to look into, things we don't accept. And those things are within ourselves, and we don't have to even talk about this to anybody. We just know it, that it's there. And it's buried with every one of us. That's why they didn't say light is good and dark is bad. What was focused is this presence of both, and they worship the both. They worship the darkness, they worship the lightness. They don't differentiate between these. In all forms of yogic practices, be it in Buddhism, be it in Hinduism, be it in Islam, Sufis, and Christian mysticism. Everyone has noticed the same thing all around the world, this acceptance of both sides. And the weird thing is none of these conversations actually matter for the experiencer, because the experiencer will always experience whatever is coming in front, whichever side is coming.
Can you explain a bit more of this blissness in darkness? How can you be blissful when you see something you don't like? Or for example, you see something that you know is not good on yourself. How can you find bliss through that?
Again, the state of bliss is the knowingness. A certain thing that knows from us that, okay, this is not going good. There is one tagging of something being not good, and there is one tagging of being something good. But both of them, every one of us is equally capable of accepting or experiencing, let's say. We all experience misery. We all experience what we don't want to experience. But we have experienced that. And there could not have been other ways because it happened. And a lot of things we don't know whether it's going to be good, whether it's going to be bad, and we're just experimenting and we realize, okay, this is not what I wanted. So that's where the courage comes in, to just watch it. Okay, this is the misery that I'm going through. How miserable can I be? What's the last point of being completely miserable? And then we don't find last point of complete miserable, because we already are in that last point of complete miserable. And what we can always do as the easiest way is to watch it, the feelings that come in. And after that there is the free will. Yes, it has been talked about in many religions about this free will. It is there, but without knowing these different spectrums within us, that's not free will just yet. Because we are influenced by many things every day. And we say certain things is good just because of the influence that we have had, and certain things bad just because of the influence. But this capability of analyzing what's going on inside after hearing or seeing certain moments, certain incident, then knows then what steps should be taken for each individual. And that's the path of every seeker, I think. Because you just have to see it and then analyze it, how this affects you personally. Because all of us have different journeys and it's unique and special for everybody. So how this is going to affect, and then take accordingly action. And also having known that my action might not be the best one at the moment, or might not result what I want to, but then that will be accepted also. And that creates bliss, because you're not worrying at all, you're just doing what feels right, and you don't worry anything about it. Then there is no misery after all. We have all experienced certain moments in our life that we did something and then we don't worry about it anymore. Then it does not create any shadows. It just becomes part of the memory, and that's it. But like everything else, the most dangerous is when we fight with our own minds and our own emotions. Then that's where it starts getting more and more darker, and more it makes us feel afraid about it, gives fears and all these things. There's a very interesting concept of Kali in the Eastern philosophy. This concept of the total darkness or total hideousness or total fearful structure that they have identified as this entity called Kali, and they just accept it because they have known that there is no way of denying anything in the universe. The more we deny, the more we are miserable. So they just see that, okay, this is that side of life. Then it just becomes normal because they've identified that as that side of life. And what we cannot identify gives us fear. That's why we just have to keep on watching. There's not going to be any stop on watching this. It has to be always there. I mean, it is always there. What can we do in our life except for watching and witnessing everything we do? And that's where bliss is. Because you just know it, okay, I accept. With my full consciousness, I accept whatever is going on at the moment. And my actions might give certain things, certain results differently, but that will be also accepted. So that is exactly like attaching oneself with the will of universe or God or energy forms or whatever word we might want to put it. It just will accept everything. Like the earth, it accepts anything we do. It's just accepting. Just like that. And this level of acceptance, if we have on ourselves, then there is this concept of I am that I am, or Aham Brahmasmi in Sanskrit. That's me. The incident is also me, what's going on with me. The characters that I'm playing is also me. The sufferings that I will have afterwards is also me. Or the sufferings that I have had previously is also me. Then it starts connecting all the dots that what forms me and what is this identity, what is the experience that's going on. And it adds deeper and deeper into the meaning of existing. Not the existence, but existing as we are existing, because we are here. Yeah, that is bliss. It's just right in the between, in the middle of happiness and sadness, this central line or middle path. But that path is very slippery and we just fall on one side all the time. Sometimes we fall on the happy side, sometimes we fall on the sad side. Just keeps on going. The mantra I've been using for past, since I started quinoa is that also. And it helps me a lot. Whenever I go through really bad moments that I don't want or didn't want me to happen to me, I just sit quietly for a while, I watch the situation and just remember that also. It can be that also is a part of existing, or that also is part of experiencing, that also is part of who I am. Just watch at it and remember myself, that also. And it helps a lot, and it just releases all the things I didn't want to have. The anxiety, the lowness, it's all accepted. And that's the magic. That's alchemy.
And how do you deal with attachment to people, for example?
Okay, there's a journey that goes within, and the realization that we are entirely alone. No matter what we do, however effort we put into anyone, in the end, ultimately the experiencer is always alone. And being on that state creates a certain humbleness. And whenever a person comes in and whenever a person goes out, for the mind it has different, for the emotional body it has different experiences. But for the one, when you identify yourself with this watching, with this witnessing, then there is no difference at all. Because you will be watching from a higher vantage point than normally we would do in really daily lives. So this higher vantage point allows a deeper perspective of why the person was there, why the person had to leave, and what should be done, what should be experienced, what should be accepted. It just becomes clearer. And really, how can we understand anyone after all, when we cannot understand ourselves? We only see certain spectrum of somebody and that resonates with us, that we feel good about. And then we connect with the person, we learn something, and when the time is there for the person to leave, they will leave one way or another. There will be separation. And therefore the experiencer is what it counts in the end. How you experience that attachment, how you experience that detachment. Did it create some sorts of sorrows inside you? Did it create misery, or you were able to accept it easily? That's what it counts. And it's never in cosmic reality, it's never a judgment to anybody, because we are here for about 100 years and we don't know where we came from and where we're going. And on that time, what can we do? There were planets before us, there will be planets after us, and the whole things, the vantage point again starts creating greater and greater and greater, and you see the larger reality that's taking place, for which small details makes like a pattern, like in the carpet, there are smaller details. But we soon forget about the pattern because it's a larger picture. So again, we can start with accepting of the immediate situation, whatever we are in, and then just silently watch what the being wants to do. That's why I said we need to drop our minds once in a while. That keeps us away from the daily hassles of daily fuzziness of life, and brings us to seeing patterns in this fuzziness, because there is emotional imbalance in every one of us. And when we know that this is true for every one of us, there is one pattern already, that it's not just me. All of us have suffered something like this. And then it creates easiness that, okay, it's not just me. It's there, it's a phenomenon. And it needs to be practiced, just like we practice things in our daily life.